Well, with the invasion of time, you have an episode that ends the season, and it's a good idea. It's a big story for a part of Doctor Who and the overall Time Lord lore, where you get a lot of it here. But boy, the presentation and delivery just kind of fumbles and stumbles here and there. But you do get some cool stuff out of it, and but well, it you kind of wish it could have been handled with better care. Now, some things you just couldn't do because they just didn't have the ability to do so. Obviously, the most staggering thing would be the appearance of the Vardens as being nothing more than you know, I don't know, a little cellophane or saran wrap sheets and shimmering in there. And then they later corrected it, of course, but so it looks a little better. But you know, yeah, it is what it is. But it's an interesting thing where a lot of ways you can see that the Vardens, if they'd have gotten a hold of the Master, their plot might have worked. But you know, the Doctor got wind of it, and he comes in. But little did he know that they were puppets of someone else. But nevertheless, this is one of these things where I think, I don't know. Again, haven't listened to Big Finish's Time War stories if they reference any of this, because the means by which you bypass the transduction force field, if you will, of Gallifrey that protects it from this very thing. The Vardens had a means by which to get there. Of course, they utilized a Time Lord to do it, but there it is. They would now have this knowledge, except I guess they're still stuck in the time loop the Doctor left them in. I don't know. But I wondered if, like, the Daleks could get reference to this, and they go and get the Vardens or the Suntarans, what have you, to figure out a way to take the war to Gallifrey and whatnot, or they just figure it out on their own. I don't know, but it's one of those things in keeping with the overall narrative of ways of which of conquering the Time Lord. So another thing about it is, slowly but surely, like I said, like the more godlike presence the Time Lords had originally is now whittled away in this. I think in the comments someone suggested, well, there's different groups of Time Lords. Certainly the ones who judged the Doctor at the end of the War Games, maybe they're a more powerful sect, but you think they would have come in and put a stop to this because this was nearly their end with this invasion. So I don't know how else they could have done it, or maybe could have kept it off planet and it could have led to it or something like that. I don't know, but they've diminished over time here in the Fourth Doctor's era, and that's probably not for the best overall in comparison to the two. But then again, there might be an explanation here as well. The best thing about it is we get Barusa again, and I think Barusa was a character should have kept around. Understand his ultimate fate. Apparently, in the Time War, he gets freed and all that. But he's an interesting character as he recurs, and apparently the Doctor had several teachers, like the Hermit. But Barusa is one that could make an interesting character that's not necessarily a villain, but is something of an obstacle for the Doctor at times, and then, of course, an ally. So they're back and forth here, and the explanations between the two, like the Doctor has to pretend that he's become this corrupt villain and is almost completely insane because the Vardens can read his mind, so he has to practice this, and with his erratic behavior, which, come on, it's usually normal for him. So it kind of works, but it got even more so as he's throwing off the Time Lords and the Vardens until finally he can have his little lead-lined office with Barusa, and tell him, and Barusa says, well, you didn't think I could do it? He said, no, you can't. You're too easily read, because he's all very strict and serious. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. So now he knew what the plan was, and they had to act fast and all of that. But so the Doctor, this is a sort of a sequel to Deadly Assassin, as it left it open. They didn't have a president after all that, and the Doctor was the only candidate, but he split. So under their ragtag laws, whatever, he was able to just show up and claim the presidency, and so he was inducted, and there he was. The Doctor was the president, Lord President of Gallifrey. And as a result of this, of course, he gets, once again, this is not his first contact with the Matrix, but previously that was kind of hacking into it. And so now he had full access because he had the crown, and that would access him to it. So, boy, you think he would have found out that he had all these thousands of other lives? But, of course, in the end, his memory is wiped at the end of the show, only for a couple of days. But whatever knowledge he might have gotten from the Matrix, you could argue that he didn't, but except that doesn't apply. It holds up for Timeless Child or any of that nonsense, because he does go back to the Matrix later. And also, one of the working theories is that his knowledge of Time Lords and of Gallifrey and whatnot increases after this, certainly leading into what they were trying to do anyway with the Seventh Doctor. I think it bears some credibility there that this opened some knowledge that he didn't have before. But it wasn't completely fleshed out in that man. But there's little nods here and there you can use to make that narrative. But the fact that he does interact with the Matrix, this isn't the only time and it's over and his brain was fried by the DMAT gun and so he doesn't know it. No, he does reconnect. And the fact that he does probably would, whatever memories he lost would be back, So anyway, the DMAT gun was the ultimate weapon that he came up with as a result to fight off the Santarans. Boy, did I forget to mention. So the Vardans come in. They're setting it up, but they were there to put a hole in the defenses. And then even though they're defeated, here come the Santar. So it was this. That's pretty exciting when you think that it's a 6-part adventure, and you think it's over with the Vardans' defeat, and then, oh no, there's the Santarans who have the ability to travel through time. And they've decided they want the power of the Time Lords probably to use against the Routons. And so there they are. They're invaded by the Mr. Potato Head. And once again, the Doctor has to figure this out. And the only way, apparently, is to just kill every last one with the DMAT gun. Well, the Santaran leader, was it Store? He was going to blow up the whole place. And so the Doctor had the gun constructed. Imagine that, the Doctor using a gun. Yeah. So he did. Now, there's several things here. We learned that the key of Rassilon, there's all these articles of Rassilon, and here they still maintain that Rassilon's like the George Washington of Gallifrey, I guess. And but now we know that, he was really a jealous and corrupt guy or what have you. But here he wasn't, and they have all these artifacts of him for every future president. And but there was also the key of Rassilon, and you're supposed to find it, but only the Chancellor knew about it. So I mean, Barusa himself eventually becomes president, so I guess no other chancellors did. I don't know. But the key, it turns out, well, what's it the key to? No, not the time. That'll come later. It's a power source for the DMAT gun. They're the most destructive weapon in the universe, which I'm guessing that probably shows up in Time War 2. Yeah. So that fits in with some elements of Time Lord lore. You get, of course, the relationship of Barusa and the Doctor. This is the final episode of Leela. She does get to do a lot here. She's good with the knife, so of course the stupid weakness of the Santarans is that stupid little vent in the back of their suits. So of course Leela hits that real easily. So the guy drops him flat, You get more of the TARDIS. Now this is something that was long overdue, where you got to see, good Lord, just how big is it in there? But I guess they just didn't have enough of the circle panels. You'd seen them before, back when the Doctor and Sarah were walking through the halls of the TARDIS, and it was all the circular panels, and they find the brown control room, And then later he moves back to the other one, but it's changed because the TARDIS can renovate itself. But here, the back door to the control room, you open it up and you're just in this, brick hallway. It looks like a storeroom, probably at the studio. And that's kind of the rest of it. And eventually they're in this hospital and all that. And then you find there's a swimming pool in there, which gets referenced later, even in New Who, so it's still there. The only thing you can tell you're in the TARDIS is the sound effect of the TARDIS as they're walking around. And, it shows you how easy it is to get lost and all that. One of the cool things was the ancillary power station of the TARDIS was disguised as an art gallery. And that was pretty good. But I think later on they get it to where you have more panels to make it look like. But the idea of other rooms of the TARDIS not looking like the rest of the TARDIS would be fine. I just thought at first you would have this hallway at least that looked more like the control room and what have you. But a lot of people are harsher on that than I am, but I just thought it was cool that you finally got a tour of it. You don't really get another one until Matt Smith, and then it gets really ridiculous where there's a collapsed star inside the heart of the TARDIS. Oh, it's like, oh my God. But, So it's sadly, it's Leela's final episode, and I think Louise had said that she kind of rather she would have been killed off, and that might have been better. It might have set up the final confrontation with the Doctor and the Sontaran leader, that he was really, pretty vengeful at that point, that Leela had probably would have sacrificed herself to save the Doctor or something along those lines. But instead, we find out she's suddenly in love with Andred, this character who's sort of this comical character that's introduced. There's nothing there for the relationship. I have to conclude that this was thought up at the last minute or something. There's one scene where he's trying to get her ready for the Doctor's induction as president, and you can kind of see, the two different personalities clashing there, and they could have developed that. Instead, they pair her up with this. I don't know if she's a Time Lady or not, but the woman who ends up having the technical skill to build the TMAT gun or DMAT gun. It should have been her and Andred if you intended for this romance thing to come out. It sounds like it was sort of slapped on. And then you could have just, instead of having another K9, I don't understand what the purpose was of K9 staying with Leela. Just like, well, he really liked Leela better because, she would kiss him every now and then. So the Doctor never did that. So then he has, his other K9 that he built. I think it would have worked out probably better that way. But then again, you wouldn't have Leela in the Big Finish stories in the Time War and stuff. So, but it should have been fleshed out more. And that being said, considering what's coming next, kind of wondered if they had thought it through, that the character of Rodan could have been Romana instead, and that she regenerates at the end. But then where would you fit her in if you need more time for Leela and Andred to have their romance, I just don't know. But and then she just would have been the companion there, but however that goes. But the business with K9, I don't understand what the point of that was at all. But apparently there's 3 K9s at this point. There's that one, there's the one that went to Seraph just to head the other show, and then of course you have the one that's going to end up with Romana. So go figure. I don't know what the point was that, but that's how they did it. It's a show that I wish could have been better. I did enjoy it. I like a lot of the aspects of it. But I still kind of wish the Time Lords weren't as diminished. That being said, this is probably one of the better Barusas of the ones that have played them. The first one's not bad, but this one gets more of it, and you can kind of hearken, you can guess at what the relationship was like when the Doctor was his student and all of that. But and there's some good, powerful scenes for the Doctor and all of this, and it is sort of this clever thing, and it's sort of this rather hurtful thing that he had to lie to Leela like that. And they do give some scenes to it where he's a bit overwhelmed by it, where she's begging him to explain it and he can't and all that. If that had been, it might have been too dark for them, I guess, had she been killed off to the point that he had put her through that and then when all's well, and then a Suntaran kills her or something like that. It would have been very powerful, but New Who would probably do something like that, although there would be some magic way she'd come back to life. So, yeah, maybe not. But, I can see where that's probably a better out for Leela overall. But, but if you're going to do the romance thing, you should have put the groundwork there for the romance to be believable. And they just really didn't do it. But anyway, there you go. Deadly Assassin was better, but this one, it's an interesting episode. But, quite a few flaws in it. But anyway, that's it for Leela. That's too bad, because she was quite the joy. And you still have a canine. So he's still, for all intents and purposes, still there. So, but next up is, of course, the Key to Time story and Romana, who posits all kind of interesting aspects, even more for Time Lords and ladies. Which, boy, you'd think there'd be appreciation for the female characters, huh? No, there aren't. They act like they are, but no, you have to be a man to be turned into one to be anything meaningful. And so, sorry, Romana, you just didn't measure up, I guess. I don't know. So, but destined to be the president herself of Gallifrey, yeah. I guess her not wanting to go home cleared up when she got that job. So, but anyway, we'll deal with that when we get to it. Oh, yeah, and you got to go outside, so the wilderness areas, and they were these former Time Lords who decided they wanted to get back to nature, I guess. So, and supposedly these are not to be considered the, what do they call them, the Shobogans, what have you. I don't know. I mean, they were former Time Lords, so, but they were living out there in animal skins and whatnot. So, that's, yeah. But of course, Leela fit in right nicely with all that. So you got, you get, that's part of the coolness of the episode. You get a little more detail and whatnot and all that. Oh, yeah. And finally, what happened to the Suntaran that went into the there was 3 of them. And one got shot with the DMAT gun, and the leader, he got shot with the DMAT gun outside the TARDIS. There was a guy, the plant got him, but they freed him from it. So, I guess he's still wandering through there, Maybe one day one of the doctors stumble over this Suntaran skeleton. It's like, oh, whoops. Oh, well. Anyway, yeah, Key to Time will be the next great adventure for Doctor Who. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores and have plenty of goodies for you. Hats, mugs, stickers, posters, all that goody stuff. Plus, you can head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book Night Night. Oh, yeah. Plus, you can also catch my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, over at RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on my channel at BitChute. That's the Mr. Nailsin channel on BitChute.